Hey guys, welcome to another video. Now that we're into the fall season and Halloween is coming up in a few days, thought I would highlight a handful of arcade games that might be fun to revisit around this time of year. This isn't a top games list or ordered in any particular way, and it's certainly not complete. It's just a fun little detour from my usual videos, so I hope you enjoy it. Ghosts and Goblins is a game that needs no explanation. Originally released by Capcom in 1985 and spanning multiple home ports, sequels, and spin-offs, this game has made a mockery of millions of gamers with its notorious difficulty and false endings. Growing up, I was much more familiar with the NES port, which gets a bad rap, but despite its weaker graphics and sound, its gameplay is just as tight and challenging as the arcade version. This game fits the Halloween theme perfectly, beginning in a forest filled with zombies and ghosts, moving on through caves, volcanoes, and of course a tower where the final boss, Satan himself, is waiting to challenge you. Even though the game constantly trolls the player with fixed jump angles, fake score pickups that can kill you, monsters that spawn suddenly from nowhere, and other traps, it's at least generous in preserving player progress. Once you begin to learn the game, it becomes extremely satisfying as you complete each level, and by the time you're told that you triumphed over a mere illusion at the end of the game, you should have the confidence to jump right back in and complete the second run through. If you're a fan of fighting games, then the Darkstalkers series might be right up your alley for Halloween. Released on the CPS2 system during Capcom's fighting game peak in the mid-90s, this game took the Street Fighter formula and amped it up by pitting barely non-copyright infringing facsimiles of famous monsters against each other in battle. In addition to likenesses of movie monsters similar to Dracula, Frankenstein's monster, a werewolf, the creature from the Black Lagoon, we also get some mythical creatures like an Egyptian mummy, Sasquatch, and a samurai? After the first game, the playable roster leans more heavily on mythical creatures and original characters, so my pick for the Halloween theme would be the first game. Almost a decade before Mortal Kombat became the standard for gory arcade games and the societal outrage that came along with it, Exidy released the light gun shooter Chiller to arcades. And while Mortal Kombat was shocking in its day, Chiller can easily be described as grotesque. Unlike Mortal Kombat, where combatants inflict injury on each other, Chiller plays as a simple shooting gallery where an unseen torturer shoots helpless victims, literally shredding them apart piece by piece. Clearing a level simply consists of shooting enough targets within the time limit. Each screen also features various traps and torture devices that the player can activate by shooting, for example, a rack that can pull the victim in half, or a guillotine that you can drop by shooting at the blade. Surprisingly, this game also made it to the NES, mostly intact, in the form of an unlicensed cartridge. So why was there no major outrage over this game? It just never got popular enough because arcade owners mostly anticipated the backlash it would cause and refused to buy it. I've never seen a Chiller machine in person, but I'd love to check it out if for no other reason than to experience such an oddity. Until I find one in the wild, emulation will have to suffice. No Halloween arcade game list can be complete without a light gun shooter. In these days, horror-themed shooters are a dime a dozen, so what better series to have on this list than the one that pretty much started the whole genre, House of the Dead, or specifically in this case, House of the Dead 2. While either game would be a great choice for a Halloween playthrough, my choice tipped to Part 2 because it's more accessible with high-quality ports for the Dreamcast, Xbox, and Wii. The gameplay here is extremely straightforward. Shoot all the zombies and monsters that attack you, and don't shoot the humans. The game also features a branching path system that can change up each playthrough in significant ways, which gives it a lot of replayability. Not that anyone needs more encouragement to spend a few minutes shooting zombies in the face. I also have to mention the game's writing and voice acting, which is absolutely horrible in the best way. As scary as the game can be, you'll be trying not to crack up every time you hit a cutscene.
What the hell's going on in this city?
Don't know, but it's very similar to the 1998 Tyrion case.
That case?
James, go and prevent the confusion in the city.
Okay.
Let's meet at Sunset Bridge. We're counting on you, James.
I also have an honorable mention here, but I'll keep it in the series. House of the Dead Scarlet Dawn is the newest entry in the series, only landing in the US a few weeks ago as of the making of this video. It's an amazing experience. The deluxe cabinet is a complete environmental enclosure for 2 people, and it features all of the surround sound and force feedback you'd expect in a modern game, along with blasts of air that accentuate the on-screen action. It really needs to be experienced firsthand. Any possible home version in the future will never be able to recreate the feeling of playing it in the arcade. Nightmare in the Dark is an SNK published Neo Geo game from 2000 that I only recently became aware of. This is a late example of a single screen platformer, similar in gameplay to something like Bubble Bobble, but rather than an overly cute game of colorful dinosaurs and candy, what we have here is a much darker story of a gravekeeper fighting to return the undead to their resting places. In order to do this, you'll attack zombies, mummies, skeletons, and other monsters with fire, eventually creating a large ball that you can throw across the screen, knocking out any other creatures it comes in contact with. I may have missed the game when it originally released, but I've really come to enjoy it, and I really recommend checking it out, especially if you are a fan of Bubble Bobble. Splatterhouse may be the most Halloween-themed game on this list, purely for its aesthetics. It's creepy, it's gory, it provides a sense of being outnumbered in a strange place, and its main character, Rick, even looks exactly like Jason Voorhees. As a kid, I was completely unaware of Splatterhouse as an arcade game, and to me it was just the game you wanted a TurboGrafx for. I was never able to get one, and I never played the game until many years later, but it's one I keep going back to in small bursts. It's also very accessible, with many decent to perfect home ports to the aforementioned TurboGrafx, FM Towns, PC, and most recently the Nintendo Switch. Some of these versions are a little toned down from the arcade, but the core gameplay is intact, so none of them are bad choices. The Switch version, included with Namco Museum, is a 1-to-1 emulation of the arcade game, with some nice quality of life features added in, like a challenge mode, a handful of display options, and even a level select. It's easily the best way to experience the game today. Does this title screen remind you of anything? Yes, the arcade game Hornet Castle is actually a Castlevania game, but maybe we're lucky that most people don't associate it with that series. In fact, this is the one game on this list that I wouldn't actually recommend playing, aside from a quick look for the history aspect. Sure, the graphics are decent, animations notwithstanding. The music and sound are pretty good too. The problem with this game is just its brutal difficulty. Seriously, Ghosts and Goblins has a reputation for being difficult, but it's downright tame compared to Haunted Castle. This is also the only arcade game that I can think of off the top of my head that limits your ability to continue. Yes, you're pumping in quarters anyway, but after a few tries you can only start all the way back at the beginning. It seems like bad business to me, but I wasn't an operator in the late 80s, so what do I know? And finally, we come to the last Halloween game on our list. This game is perhaps the very first survival horror arcade game. A game where you're trapped, running for your life, being stalked by bloodthirsty monsters that you can never kill. You can only slow them down. You're trapped in an endless nightmare, and just when you think you're done, you're thrown right back into it as if your efforts were futile. You're doomed to run for your life until you can run no more, and you succumb to the inevitable. By now, you must know which game I'm talking about. So, did I miss any arcade games you love to play around Halloween time? Drop a comment and let me know. And if you love watching arcade-related content, feel free to subscribe for lots more in the future. Thanks again for watching, and have a great Halloween.